Inflation for most people is causing them to use their credit cards to try and make up for income shortfalls. How big is this problem? In the second quarter of 2022, Americans added $46 billion to their credit card balances. Some of that could be you. The Federal Reserve Consumer Credit Report showed that the rate of interest on credit cards went from 14.56 to 16.65%. Those Americans struggling with credit card debt saw their delinquency rates escalate from 1.66% to 1.81%. The Cambridge Debt Consolidation Program may be able to help you reduce the interest rates by 2/3 and cut your time to pay off the debt from 30 years to as little as 5 years. If you're struggling and you want professional and objective help getting your credit house in order, then call 1-855-435-2066.
The Black and White Network now proudly presents Moms Across America, a new program where women can speak their minds openly and freely without fear of reprisal. Moms Across America is about the issues of the day confronting America from a mom's point of view. And now, here are the moms.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Moms Across America. Our guest today is Karen Stroham. Am I saying that correctly?
No, you're not. You're like everybody else. I think there's only been 3 people in the last 12 years who have ever gotten it right. So, Strawn.
Strawn. Oh, okay. Okay. Well, thank you for clarifying that. So Karen Strawn is our guest today. But before we get started with introductions with her, I always have to plug the free Constitution. Remember, Moms Across America, you can get your free Constitution at ashbrook.org/Constitution. So make sure you go and do that because we need to know what our rights are so we know when we're being cheated. Anyhow, so now we have Miss Karen
Strawn.
Strawn. See, I already messed myself up twice. Strawn. And I'm gonna make sure I'm doing this right. So you are the founder of the Honey Badger Brigade.
I'm one of the co-founders. Yeah.
Okay. And so the Honey Badger Brigade is a team of men and women who are interested in promoting the interests of men and boys in a culture. Boy, I'm getting tongue-tied today. That has largely left them behind in opposing ideological feminism. Well, is that really happening in America?
Shameful.
Absolutely. Well, let's just get right into this. I was reading about you and watched your videos, and I thought, wow, she just makes it plain. And there was one statement that you made when you were talking about One Piece about why men are not marrying. And while you were talking, I thought exactly up what you said right after I thought it. And it's that old saying from years ago, why buy the cow when you can get the milk for free? I thought that was very interesting. So
well, it is true. It is true, but why also, like it's not just why buy the cow when you can get the milk for free. It's why buy the cow when the cow can just up and leave you at any moment, and while the cow's in your house, it's going to be nothing but trouble. So, it really is. It's not just that you can get the milk for free. It's that the cow's a bad investment. Overall.
I'll say
Well,
I failed to say who I am. My name is Vicki Tompkins, and my co-host is Annie Eublis. Oh my goodness, what a morning! I guess I got so excited about being with you today that I just forgot who I was. But anyway, Annie, you had a question.
Yeah, we noticed, Karen, you and I have talked over the years, a shift in the dichotomy between men and women in a relationship. We have become a highly disposable society. So when you're not happy with someone, it's easy to walk out the door and look for something fresher on the other side of the meadow than to work on a relationship. And this is what's missing with society today. We've become so disposable and so accustomed to whatever the flavor of the moment is, we no longer invest in interpersonal relationships, which makes a very unhappy society. And this is something that you're fighting and trying to prove the point. Hey, we're worth fighting for a good relationship, a good solid family, good solid social foundation. Otherwise, we're got a bunch of unhappy people across the globe.
Agreed, agreed. Like what feminism, this is why, when I was asked the other day, would you describe yourself as an anti-feminist? And I said, no, I wouldn't describe myself as an anti-feminist. I would describe myself as the anti-feminist. And it's because that ideology, right? The set of ideas that encompasses, all forms of feminism, whether it's first wave, second wave, third wave. Now we got the new fourth intersectional wave. We've got the sort of feminist inspired LGBTQ plus wave. We've got all of these different waves of feminism. Well, what they all capitalized on was an adversarial relationship between men and women, right? Where we went from being, men and women went from being complementary to being seen as nations at war. We were no longer team players. We are now, we have to compare everything. Do women earn every penny as much as men do? Do women have just as many positions in this field or that field, or with, this status, CEOs in the C-suite, in politics, in all of these things? Women have to be exactly 50-50. Otherwise, men are cheating them out of something. And that's just not how men and women have always operated. Women have been overwhelmingly represented in terms of charitable work, in terms of community volunteering, in terms of knitting the community together, bringing to, you don't see men arranging block parties or barbecues or you see women in history typically doing those things, right? And yes, you don't need two CEOs in a marriage, right? You need the CEO, and then you need the everything else, the chief executive of everything else. Sometimes that the CEO does not need to be the man. Sometimes that can be the woman, right? But generally speaking, the roles that men and women fall into, if left to their own devices with no artificial supports or constraints, with nobody propping women up or pushing men down, probably about 85% of people would settle down into traditional monogamous relationships that last at least as long as it takes to raise all their kids. You're looking at a situation where we've completely thrown away the rule book on relationships between men and women, whether that's a romantic relationship, a marriage relationship, a friendship relationship, father-daughter, sister-brother. All of our relationships between men and women now have this kind of a streak of animosity, of enmity going through the center of each of them, where we see each other as rivals rather than as partners, as fellow travelers, as teammates.
It seems like in the feminist movement in particular, women want men to be like women. And I think that has probably caused some men to say, forget this, because, I mean, come on. My husband's a strong man. He's stronger than I am. I like that. Okay. I don't want to be able to compete with my husband on the field, so to speak. I want him to cover me. I desire that. And I think if most women were honest, they desire that as well. But I think what has happened in the feminist movement, from my perspective, is that women are wanting men to be like women and understand all their emotions and understand all these other things. Men just not going to always get it. They're just not. And we need to be okay with that sometimes.
Yeah, well, I think that women don't give men enough credit for, you don't always have to understand exactly what someone is feeling and why to understand that and feel compassion that they're suffering, right? And or that they're having troubles, right? That is I think that we have over time, and you see this in the field of psychology, that we've defined women as the default. And when men don't conform to how women do things psychologically, when they don't have their intrasexual relationships, their same-sex peers type relationships, if they don't have them in the exact same way that women do, then those men are actually psychologically, there's something wrong with them. They're unhealthy. No, that's actually not the case. There's all kinds of evidence from neuroscience and evolutionary biology, and even if you're not religious like me and you don't think about things in terms of Adam and Eve, there is something to be said for those archetypes that exist in every culture, in every religion, of what characterizes a man and how men relate to each other, how they relate to women, what characterizes a woman and how women relate to each other and to men. All of those things are kind of universal across cultures, including cultures that we could never describe as civilizations, hunter-gatherer cultures in the Amazon rainforest, things like that. There are these ways that men and women exist in the world and how they view the world, how they think about things, their patterns of being, their ways of feeling and expressing emotions that are just, in general, by and large, hashtag not all, different. And so what we're doing is we're pathologizing an entire sex because males don't behave, think, and feel the way females do. And I just find that so horrible. It's such an awful message it's one thing. I remember this one time, I had this male feminist. He runs a men's studies program in I think it's university, New York State University, in Stony Brook. And he said, you don't understand what the term toxic masculinity means. You need to take a women's studies course or a gender studies course in order to really understand what it means. And I said, well, so if I need to take a university level course to understand what you mean when you say that, right? Why are you throwing it around like confetti at 6-year-old boys?
Perfect.
So,
Absolutely perfect. And so, 6-year-old boys and girls are supposed to understand what gender is when they're still trying to understand what the heck that other little kid is, there's another little kid. That's all they understand. They don't understand boys and girls. They don't understand male, female. They understand mommy, daddy, and playmate.
yeah, well, agreed. And, like that, kids can differentiate between men and women based on facial features and pitch of voice and things like that. From a very early age, 3 months old, they will respond differently to men and women speaking to them or looking at them or touching them, right? They much prefer women over men at that age. But they don't have a concept of what they are themselves, which gender they are, or what characterizes a gender until they're 3. And that's just the beginning of their building of their self-concept as a boy or as a girl. That process lasts until at least age 8 before it's even semi-solid. And we're just trying to introduce them, untether them from biological reality, starting in preschool. It's ridiculous. It's horribly detrimental and confusing to children.
Let's come back to this, right? Let's talk a little bit more about that, because that's a big issue right now that we need to come to grips with, and how we can help children, basically. So we'll be right back in a moment.
We are Americans, male and female, from many races and cultures from all over the world. One thing above all else is we are patriots who protect our nation and defend, when necessary, our Constitution from attacks both foreign and domestic. Today, as American patriots, we must take back our country from those who want to destroy it and us. We must start by taking back our children and their education. Parents, not unions, should be in charge of our children's education. We must be sure that they are taught about the greatness of America and its people. Our children should not be indoctrinated with the belief that parents are racist and are evil and trying to destroy the world. As patriots, we must take back our country from foreign nations who want to destroy us and our way of life. Yes, as patriots, we want America to be first. We want an open and fair trade policy, energy independence, safe cities, and secure borders where we can grow and prosper as a nation of free people. Become an American patriot. Help take back America by voting Republican.
Back to Moms Across America. We are here with our guest, Miss Karen Strawn.
Drawn.
Doggone it. Hey, I'm from the South. I'm going to make that excuse, okay? So when we left off, we were getting a little bit into gender identity, which is really happening a lot in our schools, in our society as a whole. So we want to get your take on this and what we can be doing as parents, grandparents, how we need to talk to our children, how we need to go to school boards and stop this. You know, so many different aspects of this. What is your take on all this going on?
Well, I think that the way I grew up, I was born in 1970, and that was sort of the Marlo Thomas free to be you and me, time and all of that. And my parents had 3 daughters and no sons, and I was the third, and I was the tomboy. And my parents were totally okay with that. My mom was a tomboy growing up. My dad didn't have a son to pass on his masculine wisdom to. Mantras like, "Oh, if there's no blood, it doesn't hurt," and stuff like that. And so I was, and I loved doing boy things with my male friends and man things with my learning how to butter floor tiles and tinker with a carburetor and things like that. So I loved being that way, and they let me be that way, and it was great. And I was never told by anybody that meant that I was actually a boy. It just meant that I was my kind of girl. And so I had no confusion whatsoever. What I think is happening now is we've done a complete reversal. Back when I started talking about men's issues and gender issues, I was called a biological essentialist and a biological reductionist. And, you just think all women have to be one way and all men have to be another way and all of that, because I dared to acknowledge that most women are one way and most men are a different way, right? But now I feel like it's returning to like that they're the biological reductionists now. They're the gender essentialists now. They're the ones that's saying that if you're a boy and you dare to like pink, or like playing with dolls, or think gluing glitter and rhinestones onto clothing is like a super fun activity, then you actually are a girl. No, but that's what these kids are being told. They're actually having it suggested to them by adults in positions of trust that maybe because you're a girl who likes boy things, you're not actually a girl. Maybe you're actually a boy. And did you know that you could become a boy? Right? No, you can't. Right? You can become a trans person, a trans boy, a trans girl, a trans woman, a trans man. That will never make you male or female. You are the sex you were born as. You have 2 X chromosomes. If you have at least 1 X chromosome and no Y chromosomes, you are female. If you have at least 1 Y chromosomes, no matter how many chromosomes you may have, you are male. That is the definition. If you make the big gametes, the egg cells, the ova, you're the female. If you make the small gametes, the sperm, you're the male, right? And that is all there is to biological sex. But we now have people in academia, so-called science historians, who say that biological sex doesn't even exist, and that the science has accepted. And I just look at these people and I'm like, are you insane? What are you doing? What are you doing? And then on top of that, okay, yes, you can cosmetically change yourself to look like the opposite sex. Anybody can do that. However, what you have is a situation where if you do that, you're not changing your essential biology and you're not changing your chances, right? And this is the horrible thing that they put in front of parents to get them to buy into letting their children do this is, well, you have two choices. You can have a dead son or a living transgender daughter, right? Or vice versa. Suicidality is not reduced after transition, neither hormonal nor surgical. Mental requirement for mental health services, use of mental health services and psychiatric drugs does not reduce. It's not decreased with transition. And possibly the most atrocious thing about this new philosophy regarding children and puberty blockers and all of that is that puberty is the natural cure for trans identifying youth. In 85% of cases, if you just let the child go through puberty, they come to terms with the fact that, actually, I do kind of feel like the sex I was born as. And then they go on and live normal lives, right? If you stop that process, you are preventing a self-cure in 85% of these cases, a complete recovery without any intervention at all. And if the massive dose of sex-affirming hormones at puberty is enough to bring these kids out of this kind of mismatch between a couple of structures in their brain and their biological sex, if sex-affirming hormones can cure them of that, then basically, wouldn't the first treatment you would reach for if it was just an absolute emergency and this kid was in such bad psychological shape that you needed to intervene in some way, wouldn't the first intervention you try be sex-affirming hormones? Hormones that would make a girl feel more like a girl, make a boy feel more like a boy. Wouldn't you try that first, right? Because that doesn't involve a lifetime of hormone, they call it hormone replacement therapy. It's not a replacement, it's cross-sex hormones. It doesn't require any using cancer drugs on them to block puberty, which is what they are. They're used off-label. Remember all the big frou-frou over ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine and how doctors can't prescribe things off-label. That's it. They hasn't been through double-blinded clinical trials. It's used off-label. Bad. Yeah, these drugs to block puberty, they're cancer drugs. They were never tested for this. There was never any clinical trial for their use in children to block puberty, right? We don't have any longitudinal studies. The first 10-year studies are just finally coming in and they're not looking great, right? So I'm just like, why would you? And sterility, right?
Yes.
Massive surgeries with huge complication rates. Like, why? Why would you want that for your child when leaving things alone has an 85% likelihood of turning out absolutely fine, normal life? Maybe if maybe they'll turn, because most of them, the majority of them who grow out of it, they become gay adults, but at least you can have biological children with, you naturally, you don't have this lifetime of hormones and all of the surgical complications and everything else that goes along with it. It just, being gay complicates your life. Being trans, really, really, there is no part of your life that does not become complicated
Karen,
because her life.
but I got one question. How dare you allow the big pharmaceutical companies, these big medical facilities, not make their money off the back of these confused individuals and families? How dare you deny them their profit?
Oh, and how dare I deny an 11-year-old the right to decide what he's going to eat for dinner, let alone whether he wants to lop his tallywhacker off.
Well, I mean, when I look at it, just like you, Karen, I was like, what are you guys smoking that you would think this is logical, that you would do this? Because like you, growing up, I have 6 brothers, right? So I had 4 older brothers.
My
Who do you think I'm gonna
condolences.
copy? Yeah, who do you think I'm gonna copy? I'm
Mhm.
gonna climb the trees. I'm gonna ride the motorcycles. I'm gonna do all the stuff that my brothers did. They were my brothers and they were older than me. So of course I'm gonna follow them around. Not one time in all of my life did my mom say to me, "Oh, well, you may be a boy too." Never.
No.
That never happened. And when I got to a certain age, everything changed. And
Yeah.
I knew exactly who I was. Those are my brothers. I'm their sister,
Well, and this idea that, well, we have to block puberty because they're going to get more distressed. And it's like, who isn't distressed during puberty? I remember age 14 sobbing into my mother's shoulder because I didn't have these babies.
Yep.
Okay. And I didn't have boobs like all the other girls. And then at age 15, after I expanded 5 cup sizes in
Yep.
one summer, right? I was like, I hate these things. Take them away. Sobbing into her shoulder again. There is just no. Everybody is uncomfortable with their body when they're going through puberty. Everybody hates what's happening to them. Oh my God, I'm getting hair here, and oh my God, I'm getting hair there, and oh my God, then I don't have my sons. They were. Oh, I seem to be cursed with a thin beard, and then all of a sudden they turn into the Sasquatch, right? And then they're unhappy too, right?
Yeah. And that's normal. And I think what we're doing is we're trying to tell kids you're not normal.
But
You
we're
are.
trying to tell them the only way to be normal is to be abnormal, right? And I think that the transgender community is largely trying to normalize it, because just think of the term cisgender, right? In math and physics, trans is the opposite of cis, right? So if something transitions, it's trans. If something in isotopes and stuff, if something is like in its natural state, it's cis, right? Well, okay, so before that, the invention of that term, it was trans people and normal people. They didn't want to call people who were not trans normal people, because then that implies that trans people aren't normal, right? Now it seems like they just want to make a legion of more of trans people, just legions of them, create them so that they themselves can feel normal. And they want to push these kids into the decision so that they can reassure themselves that they made the right decisions themselves. And I guarantee you, a lot of them didn't, and a lot of them regret it. And they're more and more coming out every day. And I just can't wait until the lawsuits start pouring in, because, like, you look at it, they're going to be suing their parents, they're going to be suing their healthcare providers, they're going to be suing anybody that they can sue, to make up for the fact that they completely destroyed their bodies, and now they regret it because they weren't any happier for it.
And what will be the answer for them other than suing?
Agreed. And what's going to change anything other than suing?
Right.
So
and they're still going to be miserable even after the lawsuit's over. What are you going to do then? I mean, it's already happening where people who have gone through the transition process, especially the young teenagers, they're saying, you have destroyed my life.
Yeah.
And how could we not see that happening? I mean, we're supposed to be the adults, and we're supposed to be the ones that are leading and guiding children into
We're
making.
supposed to be the moms
Yes.
across America and Canada.
Nice plug.
That's a really nice plug.
Mm.
Well, Miss Karen, thank you so much for being with us. It has been a pleasure having you on the show. And Moms Across America, as I always say, you are America. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us today, and we'd like to hear your comments or questions. So go to bwradionetwork.com. That's bwradionetwork.com, and give us your questions or comments. And thanks for joining us today.